Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, thank you so much for your time. Why do you believe that this is the right time for Texas to open 100% and to end the mask mandate?
Well, a couple of things, Jack. First of all, we are seeing some of the lowest numbers. You know, in any given day, the numbers can shift, but overall, we're seeing some of the lowest numbers we've had in 4 months. Secondly, that we are vaccinating more and more people every day. And by the end of this month, or maybe early April, everyone over the age of 65, or nearly everyone who wants a vaccination, we believe will have one. And the key there is, Jack, that we did something in this state compared to other states. I sent a letter to the EVAT committee, you may recall last month, and said, I want to put focus on people 65 and over. And the reason is that those are the ones who are between 72 and 74% of the people who have passed away from the COVID, and they are the ones that make up a large number of those in the hospitals. So once you focus on vaccinating that group of folks, we're about half of people 80 and over. We're not quite half of the 65 and over, but once you do that, then not only are you protecting that vulnerable group, but you are also cutting down on the people who will need hospitalization long-term or ICU. It doesn't mean that you won't have younger people in that situation, but that is the driving force in some of our hospital numbers in the past. So other states have focused on vaccinating people in career, very different than Texas. We said, where's the vulnerable population? It's 65 plus, and that's what we focused on. And as we vaccinate that population, there will be less strain on the hospitals, which is really part of this issue. Secondly, I believe that Texans have, it was about a year ago next week that the Houston Rodeo was canceled, the NBA and Major League Baseball. In a year, people have learned to adapt, and they've learned how to work with this. And so now I think it's time to move forward with the hospitalizations down and vaccinations going up. You know, the president said that he hopes by the end of May or June, everyone in the country who wants a vaccination of any age will have it. So it's time to start moving in that direction even more so.
I wanted to ask you, the CDC director, Dr. Rochelle Walensky, just said a short time ago this morning that she doesn't believe it's the time to release all the restrictions just yet. So what do you say to her and to other healthcare providers, doctors, et cetera, some of them here in Texas, that they think it's too soon?
So I gave you the answer. The first answer I gave you, which is a part of that. The CDC has a different view of who to vaccinate than we do. We think ours is the right view on this, 65 and over, as the primary source these first several months. Secondly, we're not saying to people that you shouldn't wear a mask or you shouldn't social distance. We're leaving it up to people. I'm not a mandate guy. I've never been in favor of mandates. I believe you give people information and let them make their decisions. So businesses, for example, if they want to require a mask, they can under the governor's order. And if we have a situation where we see hospitalizations go back up to the 15% or more of COVID, then the local county judge or the local elected officials can reinstitute some mandate. But right now, we are not. El Paso is close to 15%, but the other hospitals have gone down dramatically. And so we believe we're on the right path on this. And that's the reason. Focused on the 65-year-olds, they make up many of the people in the hospitals, many of the people in the ICUs, and many of the people who have passed away from this virus. And so with our focus on that, and again, by the end of March, early April, we think every 65 plus who wants one, we may not be in 100% of them, but we're going to be darn close to most who want one.
What about schools? A lot of people are asking, how does the governor's new orders that go into effect next week impact them? What do you think should be done? Is it up to each individual school district to decide for itself?
Yeah, I had a long talk with the governor today about that issue. And here was the rule we put in place last summer before school started. We left it up to every one of our roughly 1,200 school districts. So if the school districts want to require masks to their school board, their superintendent, if they want to require them, then we're leaving that to the school district. If not, we're leaving that to the school district. What we've heard from many school districts is that they've been able to manage this pretty well. I mean, Texas is one of the leaders in the country of having students in the classroom, unlike the blue states. And I think most of the schools are going to say, whatever our policies are and have been, we're almost through the school year, another 3 months. We're just going to stay on that path. But that's up to the school board and the school district to make that decision.
The governor, as you know, has been criticized from Democrats, but also conservatives. Democrats say this is the wrong thing for him to do. Conservatives say, what took you so long? We've been asking for this for months.
I don't get into making comments on other people's comments about someone else. I'll respond maybe sometime to what they say about me, but not about what they're saying about the governor. But look, Jack, no matter what we do, the governor or myself, no matter what we do in a state with 29 million people, someone's going to have a different view, whether they're Republican or Democrat. Leadership is about leading. That's why a month ago, or I guess more than that, I sent that letter to EVAP to focus vaccinations on 65 plus. I got some criticism for that. Well, what about us? We wanted to focus on 69 plus. I got criticism this week from some when I called for the resignation of the PUC chairman and the Ercot chairman. I thought it was the right thing to do. We have to get to the bottom of what happened during the storm, and we have to fix it. And you begin by fixing it at the top, and you don't have confidence in those top leaders. So you just have to do what you believe is the right thing to do if you're in a leadership position, and take the arrows that come with criticism.
On that point, what is your reaction to the fact that the chair of the PUC did resign hours after you called for her resignation? But at this moment, I don't believe that Ercot CEO has stepped down just yet.
He has not. And we're looking into why he has not, but it's a matter of time, is what I would say. Ercot is a private entity. It's not a state agency. And there may be a contractual buyout of his contract. We're trying to look at that. And that's why he's not quitting, because he wants to get paid. But we need new leadership at Ercot. And we're going to get new leadership at Ercot. And one of the things that we're working on now, Jack, is to totally reform that total Ercot board. We hope to do it soon and pass legislation so we can replace the members of Ercot on the board that we think need to be replaced before we leave here in May. I do not want to leave here in May and leave Bill Magnus in charge of Ercot.
Let me
He should have stepped down. His testimony, here's the bottom. People say, well, Dan, I didn't do this lightly, Jack. I don't know that I've ever asked for anyone else to step down. These are people, they're good people. They didn't mean to cause harm, but mistakes were made. The PUC oversees Ercot. That's why both leaders had to step down, in my view. But the real key, Jack, and I don't know if you watched the hearings, I watched 90% and listened to 90% of the two-day testimony. I wanted to hear what they had to say, and they testified for about 9 hours between them. When the question was asked, what could you have done better? Neither had an answer. When the questions were asked, what would you do differently in the future to prevent it? Neither had an answer. Their testimony was the key, not to mention what we learned about where the breakdown occurred. And also, I was very unhappy that both of them said they had contacted, the governor or the lieutenant governor, the legislature. Never happened. In fact, they admitted to me the day after the hearings that that wasn't correct. We never had any warning of the severity of this, Jack. I don't think the general public knew. The legislature, if you look at all the questions asked by the House and the Senate members, obviously they didn't know. We knew it was going to be cold. They told us they could handle it. We might have some brownouts, but they did not prepare us, which allowed us to be in a situation where we counted on them living up to what they said. And they were totally not prepared, in my view. There were a lot of things happened, some within their control, some outside of their control. But we need new leadership of those positions. And Bill Magnus, if he insists on staying for a while and will not step down, it just will be a matter of time before we move on from him.
Let me ask you, as far as some people did testify that they thought it's time that there be a seamless integrated system between the electric grid and the gas grid. Right now, there are two separate regulators, the PUC for ERCOT and also the Railroad Commission for the gas sector. Is it time for both of them to be under one regulator that's very responsive to the public with elected officials, et cetera.
So I've made this very clear, Jack, that, and I'm obviously working with the governor and the speaker, and we all have the same goal to fix this, but I'm personally putting this on my back to fix. I'm not going to allow any bill to come out of the Senate, whether it's from a Senate committee or a House bill that comes over to us, that does not address these issues. And we don't have all the answers yet. We're starting to get some answers, but we're going to pass legislation that addresses those issues. And Jack, that's a fair issue. In my view, I'm starting with a clean slate, a clean piece of paper. We're starting from the beginning with Ercot, with the PUC, with the Railroad Commission, how everyone works together. And I'm not going to let legislation come to the floor until we address all of those issues. I'm taking responsibility to get this fixed.
I'm watching the clock. I've got 2 minutes left, and I want to ask about post-pandemic. There's been a lot of discussion as to whether the governor has too much power, and whether he should be calling in the legislature after a certain period of time. Where are you on that issue?
Jack, it's a fascinating question. I think that we're all concerned that any governor, Republican or Democrat, could exercise more power than they should, or the people would want in the time of a crisis. At the same time, Jack, for example, there's some bills moving through both chambers saying that after 30 days or 60 days or whatever the number is, there must be a special session. Well, we're still under an emergency order going all the way back to the hurricane. And part of that is we receive FEMA funding. If we end the emergency order, then some of the folks take time to rebuild their homes or rebuild their businesses or whatever it may be, or rebuild roads in a county. So if you have a bill that's tied to an emergency special session within so many days, we could be there lots of times. Secondly, during a crisis, during the hurricane, for example, I spent a lot of time knocking on doors and taking food to people, going out on the truck, trying to rescue people. I don't want to be in Austin during those emergencies. And I don't think either many senators, many House members were out on the boats trying to help people. So, and just because you call a special session, that's no magic formula that anything is going to be addressed quickly. So I definitely want to be sure that no governor, Republican or Democrat, has powers that exceed their constitutional limits and take away power from the legislature, which represents the people. So we have to guard against that. And I've actually said to the governor, look, you've been Attorney General, you're the governor, you've been involved in this, you now see the levers that you can pull and what you have to do and what you can't do and where you need help. So help guide us in this, and the legislature will help guide us in this. And I think we'll come up with good legislation by the end so that there's a good balance. But just saying after 30 days when a storm hits or an emergency hits, everybody should run back to Austin and fix something, they won't even know what to fix. And I'm concerned it turns into politics. But at the same time, we don't want anybody taking over our government for a long period of time. So there's that lever to be pushed at the right time for the right reasons, and we'll figure that out and we'll pass it.
Last question, real quick. Do you foresee a special session just because of the volume of really top priority issues that need to be dealt with?
Yeah, I think it's a real possibility. We have a lot on our plate right now. And if we don't get it finished by May 31st or 30th, whatever the last official day is, then we'll come back and continue. We have to get the Ercot and the PUC, we have to get that addressed. And that may take a little bit more time than we have. Because as we replace these board members, we have to find people, qualified people, and people who don't have a conflict of interest. So we want to get the right people in there, not just make a snap decision to make a decision. Secondly, Jack, because the Biden administration, I believe, is dragging their feet on the census numbers, we should have had those in April to draw our new maps for the 2022 election as the Constitution requires every 10 years. We're now told we're not going to get the information until the end of September. If we don't get the end of September, that information to draw the maps, obviously we'll have to have a special session somewhere in October, November to come back and draw the maps. So we'll have a special session on that issue alone at some point. But I want to address the Ercot issue and the PUC issue first up and foremost. Thank you, Jack.
Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.